What's up, guys? So Coinbase is going to go public. Yes, the much anticipated cryptocurrency exchange platform Coinbase is going to have its IPO April 14th of 2021. The ticker symbol obviously is going to be COIN, COIN. It has listed about 115 million shares. Although we still don't know exactly what the price will be, the starting price for their stock when they go IPO. A lot of analysts believe the company is valued at $68 billion and some other estimates up to $100 billion. That means it's not a small cap nor a medium cap. It is a large cap. So it's going to go out the gates being a sizable company. Before I go any further, Coinbase isn't technically an IPO. It's actually a direct listing, and it's important. I saw this article that I thought was pretty interesting that kind of went over the difference between an IPO and a direct listing, and really wanted to highlight a couple things. So I'll link this article down in the description box so you guys can check it out yourself. But the listing, here's what this article said. The listing in Coinbase shares on Nasdaq this week is generating high expectation as well as much debate to whether the price will pop. So typically, what that means is IPOs, at least in 2020, the recorded IPOs pop, meaning they really do well in the first day. And you can see here all these IPOs from 2020 like really did pop. They just, the anticipation, and what IPOs typically do is they're trying to generate cash, and Coinbase is not doing that. They're doing a different thing. It's a listing, and they don't perform as well. So let me go back here, and I want to show you first this graph on here. So here's what direct listings, how they've performed recently. You can see all these tanked. They didn't do so well at all. I mean, it took a few days before like Palantir to go back up or Spotify to come back up. And even that, 4%, and here's like barely 2%, and then it dropped back down. These didn't do well the first 7 days at all. And one of the main reasons, and I'll go up here, this article touches on, is that IPOs raise new capital, direct listings do not. This direct listing will not fill Coinbase's coffers with cash, but it will make it easier for Coinbase to raise capital going forward. A direct listing is a liquidity event, an IPO is a capital raising event, and that's very, very different. And here's some of the reasons why IPOs are less volatile and direct listings are a little bit more volatile, actually quite a bit more volatile. Is that IPOs do not count in the support of large institutions, which in an IPO would commit to buy a certain size tranche. These institutions would have a face-saving and economic incentive to keep the price above their commitment level. So the direct listings don't have that built in. In an IPO, existing shareholders typically have a lockup to 6 to 12 months during which they cannot dump their shares on the market. A direct listing does not have a lockup, as it is based on shareholders selling their holdings. There are exceptions such as Palantir, which imposed its lockup at the limited insider selling to 20% of their holdings. The share price slumped the day the lockup expired. I believe that's right here, I'm assuming. And then lastly, the sellers of Coinbase shares in a direct listing, existing shareholders do not have to sell their shares. Some may wait to see how trading is going before submitting their offers, which will affect the numbers of shares being traded and could exacerbate price swings. Coinbase has registered 114 million shares eligible for sale, but we do not yet know how many shares will actually change hands Wednesday. So what does that mean? It's going to be pretty volatile, and we don't know what it's going to do. There's none of these built-in things to help with volatility as IPO have, and just some things to keep in mind. So what that means, it could actually do really well right off the gate. or it could actually do pretty bad. There's so many different factors that are taken into consideration when an IPO comes out, and one of those is the size of the company. But nonetheless, typically an IPO usually is its most volatile right off the gate. As soon as they make that initial public offering, it does some weird stuff. And typically with tech stocks, they usually take a slight dip before they go up. So that's just something to consider if you are interested in investing in Coinbase when it comes out April 14th. I'm still not sure if I'm actually going to invest in Coinbase at all. It's definitely on my radar, and I'll be watching it very, very closely. The likelihood of me investing right out of the gate is very low, as I don't typically invest in IPOs. And there's nothing against with investing IPOs right off the gate. There is some pros to it, but just me personally, I just never have, and I've always just watched it. I prefer investing in long-term healthy companies that are going to do well over the long run, even if I don't take the initial potential gains that some of these IPOs can potentially take. I just monitor it and take calculated risk based on what I think it's going to do in the long term. So there was an article about Motley Fool that I want to go over real quick because I thought it had some pretty good insights on Coinbase and whether or not you or anybody else should invest in Coinbase. Like I said before, it's a company that I'm definitely going to be looking into and probably will invest later on. But let's take a look anyways. So a breakout year. For the fiscal year ended December 31st, 2020, Coinbase reported revenue of $1.14 billion, up 139% from 2019. This helped drive a net income to $322 million, up from a loss of $30 million in 2019. Adjusted EBITDA was even more impressive, growing more than 2,000% to $527 million. That's very impressive. That definitely looks good from a financial statement standpoint, and if you're assessing a company by its financials, that is very impressive. The company's customer metrics from 2020 were equally compelling. To close out the year, Coinbase reported verified users of 43 million, up 34%, while the number of monthly transactions users soared 180% to 2.8 million. This drove up the company's assets on platform to more than 90 billion, up 432% from roughly 17 billion in 2019. Trading volume also increased substantially to 193 billion, up 142% from just 80 billion. Wow, so impressive numbers by Coinbase. It makes sense. Cryptocurrencies are becoming more and more popular and mainstream. Fintech companies are really taking over, and it only makes sense that Coinbase would be doing so well. It's definitely a company, again, like I said before, to look for. It's also the first cryptocurrency exchange company that's going public. So they will be the forerunners. They'll be, one of the first. So there's something to say to be the first ones out of the gate into the market that will definitely bring them a lot of leverage in the future. So again, like I said before, IPOs are very risky. They have an inherent risk just because of the volatility up front. And they have known to drop significantly from their initial public offering, especially the first day up to the first week, if not first few months. This is just a lot of speculation, so that could happen. But then again, I've seen IPOs that fly through the roof. So just be mindful, like I said, and I've always said before, think of a company. When you invest in companies, make sure it's something that you want to hold on for a long term, something that you will keep for at least 20 years. Again, as if you're buying the company itself, even though it's just shares of the company. Take ownership of the companies that you choose. I think that's the better strategy. It's definitely worked for me in the long term. At the end of the day, figure out what your strategy is, what it is that you're trying to get out of it. If you're a day trader, you know what you're doing. If you're a short-term trader, you know what you're doing. If you're a long-term investor like myself, you hopefully know what you're doing. Be careful when you're thinking about trying to get rich quick and trying to find that next company that's gonna, 10x overnight. That usually doesn't work well for most people. But It's your money. Do what you wish. Do what you wish with it, obviously. But that's it. I thought it was interesting. Coinbase is a good company in my opinion, and a company definitely to look for as it makes its way to its initial public offering on April 14th. Hopefully you found this informative. If you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing. Your support would be greatly appreciated. Those of you that already subscribe, I really appreciate your support. That's all I have for today. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.